Our broadcast tonight, a day after a naval skirmish between the two Koreas, the North reportedly imposes a no-sail zone in the EC, hinting at additional missile launches. The country's exports rose to the second highest mark on record last month, backed by growing shipments to advanced countries, including the U.S. and China. Plus, it's been 10 years since Korea and Chile inked its free trade agreement. A look at whether the bilateral pact managed to create a win-win effect. With these stories and more next on Primetime News. Good evening to our viewers in Korea, and hello to those of you who are watching from around the world. It's Tuesday, April 1st here in Seoul. I am Yoo Ji-hye.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin this evening with escalating tensions on the Korean peninsula a day after the two Koreas peppered each other's territorial waters with artillery shells. Word gets out that North Korea has imposed a no-go zone in disputed seas. It's
a move seen as a possible preparation for additional launches, while the South warned of serious consequences if the regime carries out another provocation. Our Defense Ministry correspondent Kim Hyun-bin reports.
South Korean Defense Ministry spokesperson Kim Min-seok in a press briefing on Tuesday said there are currently no signs that North Korea is preparing for any additional provocations. But he added that the South Korean military is ready just in case.
We will retaliate if North Korea attacks again at an appropriate level to stop their provocations.
The ministry says artillery rounds fired on Monday afternoon were from multiple rocket launchers, which lacked accuracy, especially compared to the precision of the K-9 self-propelled heavy artillery used by South Korea. Officials say that out of the 500 shells fired by the North during a live-fire military drill, around 100 fell almost 3.5 kilometers over the border in South Korean waters near Pyeongdo Island. South Korea military retaliated in line with a new rule of engagement that is based on the principle of taking an eye for an eye. In response to the 100 North Korean shells that landed south of the northern limit line, the South Korean military's response was threefold, with 300 K-9 self-propelled heavy artillery shells fired into North Korean waters. However, tensions may be on the rise, this time on the eastern coast of the peninsula. According to local media reports citing an unidentified high-level government official, North Korea earlier issued a no-sail zone in the East Sea from Monday through Friday. That has raised speculation that Pyongyang might be gearing up for another ballistic missile launch. In another development, an unidentified unmanned aerial vehicle was found crashed on Pyeongdo Island on Monday afternoon, 1 hour after the two Koreas stopped exchanging fire. The South Korean military is investigating to determine where it came from and whether North Korea was involved. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
And North Korea also launched verbal attacks on South Korean President Park Geun-hye, denouncing her recent proposal to lay the groundwork for unification.
This prompted the South to lash out at the communist state for repeatedly displaying provocative behavior toward the South Korean leader. Our Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee has more.
South Korea slammed North Korea on Tuesday for launching verbal attacks on South Korean President Park Geun-hye. Through its Nodongshinmun newspaper, the North denounced the South Korean leader for her recent comments on North Korea's economic difficulties, calling her derogatory names like an eccentric old maid and an idiot. President Park's remarks were part of her grand reunification speech given last week in the German city of Dresden, where she laid out her plans for bringing the two Koreas together. Pyongyang had pledged to end all cross-border slandering earlier this year, and Seoul's Unification Ministry said the remarks put the regime's sincerity into question.
Such actions by North Korea raise suspicions about whether its so-called important proposal for mending inter-Korean ties was just an empty shell.
In Dresden, President Park proposed 3 ways to bring the two Koreas together: increasing humanitarian aid, holding more inter-Korean family reunions, and assisting in North Korea's infrastructure projects. Experts say the recent resumption of verbal attacks can be interpreted as a no to the president's offer.
But if we see it in the long term, it is very threatening for Kim Jong-un regime. This approach can be make the separation between common North Korean people and Kim Jong-un, the political elites.
One way to solve the latest escalation in inter-Korean tensions may be for the Koreas to hold another round of high-level talks, as they did in February.
We should always talk and keep the communication channels open, if for nothing else, to test North Korea's intentions and to monitor for any signs of change and to look for opportunities.
While talking things out may be the best way to solve a conflict, experts add that South Korea should not be naive about its partner's intentions. But dialogue may not be an option for now, as the South Korean government says it does not plan on engaging in high-level talks anytime soon. 황성희, Arirang News.
And North Korea has once again placed itself at the center of international criticism for its latest provocations.
The United States has slammed Pyongyang for its actions, and even North Korea's closest ally, China, has expressed deep concern. Arirang News' Ulian has this report.
The United States called North Korea's firing of around 100 artillery rounds into South Korean waters on Monday as dangerous and provocative, adding that Pyongyang's threats will only isolate the regime even further.
We remain steadfast in our commitment to the defense of our allies, and we remain in close coordination with both the Republic of Korea and Japan.
U.S. State Department Deputy Spokeswoman Marie Harf said she was concerned about North Korea's deliberate decision to further escalate tensions.
They can choose to further escalate, or they can choose to come in line with their international obligations and rejoin the international community. Unfortunately, what we've seen recently particularly is the former.
U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel urged North Korea to discontinue such provocations. He said he would discuss the issue with his Chinese counterpart during a trip to Beijing next week. China's Foreign Ministry spokesman Hong Lei expressed concern over the rising tensions on the Korean peninsula and called for restraint from both sides.
All sides should remain calm and not do anything to worsen tensions. The two should work to protect peace and stability on the Korean peninsula.
The two Koreas on Monday afternoon exchanged fires across the disputed Western Sea border known as the Northern Limit Line. Pyongyang has been raising its levels of threats in recent days after the United Nations condemned its mid-range missile launches last week and against a backdrop of joint military drills between South Korea and the United States. Yulian, Arirang News.
Some encouraging signs that the Korean economy is picking up steam. The nation's exports rose to their second highest mark on record in March.
The Trade Ministry attributed part of the increase to growing global demand. Our Hwang Jie has the figures.
The export-reliant Korean economy is gaining momentum toward a stronger recovery as advanced nations boosted consumption of Korean products last month. Korea's Trade Ministry said Tuesday that the nation's exports rose 5.2% in March from the same period a year earlier to over $49 billion. That is the second highest mark on record and faster growth compared to a 1.5% rise in February. Exports to the U.S. jumped 17% in March from the previous year, while those to the European Union rose 15%. Korea's exports to the U.S. in particular slowed in the first 2 months of the year due to harsh winter weather, with the rate of increase remaining in the single figures.
The world economy is on the recovery and the momentum is getting stronger. So the second half of this year, the exports of South Korea is expected to go faster.
Still, experts add that the slowing Chinese economy and the impact of the slowdown on global financial markets could cloud the positive outlook. By-product mobile communication devices such as handsets soared over 30%, with shipments of automobiles rising 16%. Korea's imports, meanwhile, reached $45 billion last month, up 3.6% from the previous year, helped by an increase in purchases of consumer goods. The trade surplus came to around 4.2 billion. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Retailers in Korea are feeling better about the pace of the nation's economic recovery. Business sentiment among them for the coming months has hit a near 3-year high.
The Korea's Chamber of Commerce and the Trade Ministry said the country's business survey index for the second quarter jumped to 113, up 9 points from 3 months ago to its highest level since the third quarter of 2011. A reading above the benchmark 100 means that optimists outnumber pessimists. The index has been on the rise for 4 consecutive quarters now. Improved conditions were projected across the board, especially in the semiconductor industry and machinery sectors. It's been 10 years since Korea put into force its first ever free trade agreement. But back then, the deal with Chile fanned a wide range of concerns over its possible negative effects on the country's agricultural sector, not to mention doubts about its benefits.
Now, a decade later, Korea has entered into 9 free trade pacts with a total of 46 countries, yet the worries remain. Dr. Kim In-chul, professor of economics at Sungkyunkwan University, joins us to delve into Korea's FTA history and the effect of trade deals on our future. Welcome.
Well, glad to be here.
Professor Kim, so let's start with your assessment of the decade-old Korea-Chile FTA. How did it impact Korea's trade with a Latin American country?
Well, in my opinion, it is a success story. Both parties were very smart, because they were calculating the benefits and costs in their own way. So both parties agreed or came to realize that, yeah, it's going to be mutually beneficial. We ended up importing a lot of wine, bottles of wine. And they imported a lot of, cars from us. So it's mutually beneficial, and, it's a win-win, story.
Well, since then, Korea has been on an aggressive campaign to sign FTAs, and it's the only country in the world with FTAs with the U.S., EU, and ASEAN. And while all of these deals were being discussed, officials billed Korea as becoming this global trade hub. Has that really happened and come to fruition?
Yeah, because over the past 10 years, the performance of the FTA with the Chile turns out to be successful. And beforehand, it's not exactly sure whether, they will have benefits only, because benefits and costs are mixed together. But as it turns out that, for us, Korea can do a much better job. Because, establishing FTA with any country doesn't mean that we will get the benefits only, We will get only the opportunity to become more competitive in the market, and then, we can create more jobs and we can increase our GDP.
But yet there are people who've actually lost out from these deals. Who are they, and have they lost as much as they claimed they would while the FTA negotiations?
In general, people are right. Because the agricultural sector is the very weak, and farmers would, some farmers would be losing. That's not necessarily true, because as you compare the agricultural sector, between China and Korea, of course, we're weak. But look at China. China is a country with a huge population, and there's so many people, rich people, and so many people are, of course, poor. So our low-income people can buy, their agricultural products, but their high-income people can buy our, high-quality agricultural products. So it's, mutually, gaining, even under the same agricultural, product category.
Well, Korea is pushing to conclude new trade pacts this year with Australia, Canada, China, Indonesia, and New Zealand. Is there a limit to the benefits of trade pacts? Is there a point where enough is enough, or can we just keep going without really having to restrain ourselves?
But as I say again, establishing FTA relationship with these countries doesn't mean that we automatically will get the benefits. We need to make more efforts to take advantage or to utilize the opportunities.
Okay, Professor Kim In-cheol of Sangumgan University, thank you very much for your insight tonight.
Well, thank you for having me here.
If everything goes according to plan, Korea will have a leaner fighting.
The President
Your gateway to the day's biggest stories in Korea and around the world. Breaking news, the hottest interviews, and a whole lot more. Join Arirang's Sean Lim and Yoo Ji-hye from the heart of Seoul. Primetime News, weeknights, live at 10 on Arirang TV.
Next general elections.
Those of our viewers in Korea may have woken up a bit earlier than expected on Tuesday morning due to a rare magnitude 5.1 earthquake. It was the third strongest ever recorded in the nation, but thankfully did not cause any notable damage. Our Kwon So-ah has the details.
A 5.1 magnitude earthquake shook the nation at 4:48 a.m. Tuesday morning, with an epicenter in waters around 100 kilometers west of Taean County in Chungcheongnam-do Province. It's the fourth most powerful earthquake ever recorded on the Korean peninsula and the third strongest in South Korea. Tuesday's quake lasted between 5 and 7 seconds and affected an area spanning a radius of 200 kilometers, shaking buildings and other structures. Even residents of Seoul and Gyeonggi-do Province were among those who felt the earth move beneath them.
I was awake. My house shook so much that our refrigerator made rattling noises.
Hundreds of citizens called their local authorities to report the quake, and social network services were full of messages on the rare incident. It's also raised concerns about whether Korea is prepared for the possibility of stronger quakes. While experts say a magnitude 5 quake with an epicenter on land would likely cause damage, they add that Korea's geological site conditions make the chances of a large magnitude earthquake like those seen in Japan and China very small. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now, riding a motorcycle are widely considered dangerous, but this newly developed motorbike that our Son Jang-in is about to report on could be a different story. It's a two-wheel vehicle that can't be toppled even after being tugged by an SUV.
This fully enclosed two-wheel vehicle is part motorcycle, part car, and virtually untippable, and it could soon be in your garage. Its most notable feature is it's able to balance itself and stay upright when fully stopped or even when being pulled by a rope tied to a moving truck. So in the event of a collision, the vehicle balances itself instead of falling over, giving the rider more protection. Daniel Kim, the Korean-American founder and CEO of Lit Motors, who came up with the design, says the secret lies in a special feature.
So if you're wondering how do you keep balanced, we have a patented technology. We use gyroscopes to actually keep the vehicle upright. So it makes it untippable. So you need a baby elephant to knock it over.
Safety is a key, but with a maximum speed of 160 kilometers per hour, it's also pretty speedy. The two-person vehicle is also electric and can go almost 320 kilometers on a 2-hour charge. Kim says the vehicle will be released within the year for a price of $24,000. Son Jang-in, Arirang News.
Let's check on some of the stories making headlines on the global front, from France's new prime minister to a UN court putting the brakes on Japan's building program. We go live to our Paulie at the News Center.
So, Paul, let's start in Paris, where President Francois Hollande has tapped his former interior minister as his new prime minister. What's behind the shakeup?
Well, the move follows the resignation of the now former Prime Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault and his entire government after suffering a brutal blow in Sunday's local elections. The ruling Socialist Party had lost more than 150 major towns, mostly to the opposition right, the Front National. Prime Minister-designate Manuel Valls, who is France's most popular socialist, is expected to present a leaner government team later this week. In a televised address on Monday, Hollande said the cabinet reshuffle would mark a new chapter for his government.
It is time today to start a new phase, so I've given Manuel Valls the task of steering the French government. He has the qualities needed. It'll be a tight team, coherent and united. How can I put it? A government that will fight.
The government's resignation is a huge blow to the president, whose first 2 years in power have seen him become the most unpopular head of state in recent history. And let's now turn to the crisis in Ukraine. In an unexpected move by Moscow, a battalion of Russian troops were ordered to pull back from the eastern Ukrainian border. President Vladimir Putin announced the partial withdrawal in a telephone call with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. However, it's estimated that 40,000 Russian soldiers will remain stationed along the border area. Moscow's deputy defense minister said Russian military hardware would be deployed to bases across Crimea, which have been vacated by Ukrainian troops.
Today, the first trains have left. Tomorrow, they will be followed by the others. Today, we will put together the schedule and finish the whole operation within a month.
Earlier Monday, Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev visited Crimea with a delegation of government ministers. Kiev condemned the visit as a crude violation of international rules. Meanwhile, NATO foreign ministers are to meet in Brussels beginning Tuesday to discuss steps that can be taken to support Ukraine. And moving on to a recent ruling by the United Nations highest court on Japan's whaling program. Top UN judges ordered Monday that Japan must halt its whaling operations in the Southern Ocean around Antarctica after rejecting Tokyo's claim that it constitutes as scientific research. The legally binding decision came in a 12-4 judgment. The presiding judge, Peter Tomka, said the so-called research program was responsible for killing thousands of minke whales.
The court concludes that the special permits granted by Japan for the killing, taking and treating of whales in connection with JARPA 2 are not for purposes of scientific research.
The court issued an immediate cancellation of all whaling permits under the program, a decision Japan said it would accept with disappointment. The case was brought to the International Court of Justice in 2010 by Australia that said the program was commercial whaling in disguise. That wraps up our look at international stories making headlines around the world. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello and welcome to Primetime Sports. I'm Stephen Che. The organizers of the upcoming Asian Games taking place in South Korea's port city of Incheon have reached out to the International Olympic Committee to help North Korea participate in the quadrennial event. Organizing Committee President Kim Young-soo made the request to IOC boss Thomas Bach in a visit to the Olympic Council of Asia in Kuwait. Bach said the IOC would do its utmost best to ensure North Korea's presence at the Games. And earlier, North Korea vowed to send athletes for every event, but likely lacks the ability to do so. Sports exchanges between the two Koreas are considered very important, especially as tensions run high on the peninsula. And moving on, South Korean ice queen Kim Yeonha's final gala show will resemble a classic Italian opera. The show will take on the themes and score of Giacomo Puccini's Turandot, a love story between unknown prince and Princess Turandot. Meanwhile, Kim continues to receive attention abroad not only for the Winter Olympics judging controversy, but also as one of the most attractive people in sports, as designated by sports outlet Bleacher Report. Meanwhile, the Korean Basketball League Championships between the LG Sakers and Mobis Phoebus is set to tip off. And prior to the start of the 7-game series, the two teams, their players and coaches, gathered for a press conference. The most interesting bit was that both coaches said they believed their team would beat the other in 6 games. Well, it all starts with LG hosting Mobis in Changwon for Game 1 on Wednesday. And heading to the MLB, the first video replay challenges were made on opening day. Chicago Cubs manager Rick Renteria was the first to make a challenge, but replays confirmed the umpire's call. Meanwhile, Atlanta Braves manager Freddie Gonzalez was the first to successfully challenge a call and have it overturned. Well, both came from out calls at first base. And staying with baseball, let's get to Tuesday night's top KBO matchup. The SK Wyverns took a road trip to Seoul to take on the LG Twins. Now it's the top of the first. LG starter Ryu Jae-guk struggles, giving up a 5-run rally to SK. Now LG responds in the second and third innings, and it's eventually tied 6-6 in the sixth. But SK rallies for 3 more in the seventh, and they go on to tack on a couple more on the top of the ninth, and it's 12-6 in the ninth. And we look at the other scores right now. We have Kia defeating NC 1-0. Nexon beating Tusan 9-3, and Samsung and Hanwha are still battling it out, and Samsung's up 6-5 in the ninth as well. Well, that's all I have for now. This has been Stephen Che. I'll see you back here later for more from the world of sports.
It was a wonderful spring day here in the capital with blooming flowers and warm weather, and we will enjoy more of the same tomorrow.
For more, let's connect live to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Bo-kyung, hello.
Good evening, guys. Make sure to enjoy this lovely weather while you can. Well, nationwide showers are forecast on Thursday, and once those showers clear up, temperatures will drop to the seasonal average range with daytime highs dropping to the low teens. Taking a look at the current conditions, the nation is under the influence of a high pressure system from the West Sea, which is why we're seeing clear skies across the map. The Korean Meteorological Administration announced a weather outlook for April. In early April, we may get more precipitation than usual, but it looks like we're going to get warmer than the seasonal average weather in late April. Moving on to Wednesday's readings, Seoul, Daegu, and Gwangju make it to the mid-20s, while Busan peaks at 20 degrees. Moving on to other regions, Daejeon tops out at 22 degrees, Dokdo and Mount Kumgang reach the mid-teens. Well, that's all the updates for this hour, but I'll be back with more after midnight.
Thanks, Bo-kyung, and that's a broadcast on this Tuesday night. I'm Yuji Hain, Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.